Thanks, Pika. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I can see that number of participants is quickly growing, so that's really exciting and nice to see some familiar names as well on the webinar. So if I haven't met you, I'm Celinda Prisco. I'm forgetting my title. I'm the Success Operations Manager here at Childcare CRM. So actually before working at Childcare CRM, I was a CRM user like yourselves. So I'm quite passionate about the platform and making sure that our customers are using the system to their full advantage. I'm also joined here today with my colleague, Karen.
Hi, and so I'm Karen Johnston. I'm the sales manager in Australia, and I'm also a parent myself. So I have two children, and my youngest is in childcare in her last year. So the last 6 years, I've had a lot to do with childcare centres and touring with centres, sending in inquiries. So I'll share my experiences, good and bad, with you a little bit later.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm pretty excited to get to our agenda today. We're covering some really great topics. Number one, we'll talk about today's parent experience. So we'll hear from Karen as well, which is going to be great. She's going to share a bit of her experiences firsthand. Then we'll talk about our demographic of parents today, which is our millennials. So what they want, what they need, what their expectations are. Following that, we'll talk about how the parent experience affects enrollment and retention. So that's a really key piece here. And of course, how that impacts your revenue as well. Then we'll walk through a parent enrollment journey. I'll share a bit of a story there in terms of what a great enrollment journey looks like and what our parents are really looking for. And then finally, we'll chat through 7 steps to improve your parent experience. So some tips and suggestions we have in terms of how to do that.
Wow. What have I done?
There we go. One more. There we go.
Great. So talking about parent experience. So when we talk about a parent's journey, what that is from the moment that a parent inquires at your centre right the way through to when they start and continue on with care with your centres. So what we're finding more and more is it's taking longer for parents to make a decision on their childcare. Some areas, childcare is very much high in demand, so they're inquiring when they're pregnant. One that I'm hearing a lot that comes up at the moment is to do with COVID. Often when I'm speaking with directors, they'll tell me that November was super busy with inquiries coming in, but with the latest surge of COVID cases that people have been delaying that start. People are getting their confidence back now. So as you can see, there is a lot of stopping and starting right the way through that journey. It's not always smooth running. So keeping that in mind, families are really wanting things that are convenient, that, looking for care can be really inconvenient for, working families, really time consuming, and, a lot of different things get in the way. So talking about some of the common challenges that parents are experiencing today. So I'll sort of read through them here. So slow or no response, wasted time, no follow-up, time consuming, sitting indefinitely on wait lists, and limited or no ongoing communication. So as I mentioned, I'll give you sort of one of my experiences that I had a couple of years ago. That my husband and I had bought a new house. We were looking at moving, and I needed to get childcare for two children. The area I was in was a really difficult to get childcare for my son when I first put him in care. So I was super worried about trying to get 2 children in care full time. Being a working parent, my time was super limited. So I only had a short period of time allocated to go out and see centres. So I did what a lot of families did. I jumped on Care for Kids. I Googled care within my suburb and picked a handful of centres that I wanted to go and tour at. I went and sent through inquiries to 3 different centres and waited to hear back. We'll talk a little bit later about sort of web forms and sending through inquiries, but when I'm making these decisions on childcare, it is late at night. It is when I finish work, the children are in bed. So a lot of what I was doing was online. And the centres were closed, so I couldn't speak to them. So after sending through the inquiry, the next day I had a call back straight away from one of the centres, asked me when I wanted to come in for a tour, booked it on the spot, fantastic. I didn't hear back from the other two centres. On the day that I had that tour booked, I remembered I haven't heard back from them yet. I'll put another call through. Put a call through to the two centres, went to voicemail, I didn't hear back. So drove down with my two children. My daughter would have only been 1 at the time. My son was 3 years old, I'd say, back then. Drove down, went and toured at the centre, and it was great. It met all my needs. It had all the inclusions I wanted, availability, really smooth process, showed me around the rooms, and I was really happy. While I was there, I was sitting there thinking, look, I'm really happy with this centre, but I'll go and check out just to make sure I am making the right choice. So since I still hadn't heard from the centres, I drove to one of the centres I'd inquired at. And when I went in there, they wouldn't give me a tour. They said,
wow.
you need to book a tour. And, I've explained to them that, I've sent through an inquiry, I've tried to phone, but I haven't heard back. Again, no, you can't tour. Again, explained, look, I'm a full-time working mum. I've taken time off to come and have a look at some centres. Can I even have a quick glance at the room? They let me have a quick glance at the room and then said, you need to come back and organise a proper tour. So I left pretty disappointed. It made me quite nervous that if you're not letting me see your centre now and you're being very inflexible, what sort of care will my children have? So I left there knowing that was a definite no. In the meantime, the other centre had called me back, had a chat with them, and they said, come in for a tour anytime. In that space of time, having a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, they get tired, they get grumpy, they get hungry, they were over it, they wanted to go home. So with the third centre, they'd been very flexible and said, come in whenever. And I guess because I didn't have that tour time book, I felt less compelled to go in. So I ended up just not going in at all to that centre. Got back home, kids are in bed, sit down, have a look at my emails, and straight off, I've got an email from the first centre that I saw.
Wow.
It said, "Dear Karen, thanks for touring with us today. We're really excited to meet you and your children. If you would like to move forward, this is the link to the online enrolment. We look forward to answering any questions that you have from the centre director." And that was the centre I went with, that it was just miles above the rest, but even just that post experience of, great, I just need to click here, and I knew what I needed to do. So that's to give you sort of, I guess, the experience of, ones that worked really well and got the enrolment, and other ones that I never made that appointment. I never went back again. I was very, from that, first off experience, that was not going to be a centre I'd move forward with.
Thanks for sharing that, Karen. So what's I like so much about your story is that you highlighted the good and the bad in terms of your experience, and exactly what our parents are looking for. So I want to chat about exactly what our parents want, and you did highlight some of that really well in your story there. So convenience, I think that's super important. We're all really busy. We want that to be an easy, enjoyable experience. Don't make people jump through hoops in terms of how to inquire for your service. Make that a convenient option for them. Self-service option, I think this is becoming increasingly more popular and really important to highlight. People really like that option to be able to go online, book themselves, and we'll talk about that a little bit further in the call in terms of what the benefits of that are. But parents are really looking for that today, so make sure you're potentially offering that to your parents. Immediate response, Karen really highlighted that in her story. People don't want to have to wait. They're busy, they have a lot on, and so they want to have that response be fairly immediate. They want to understand what's happening right away. They don't have to wait days or weeks in terms of a response from you. And lastly, text communication. Again, that's becoming increasingly more popular, and it's something that I think is really important to be able to offer to your families, but also make it clear in terms of what the next steps are. And I like that Karen highlighted that in her story as well. There was one service, the one she ended up going with, that clearly highlighted what those next steps were. And so she knew where she sat in the customer journey, that parent journey. So I think that's important to highlight as well. So next we're going to chat about our demographic of parents, which are millennials. And as a millennial myself, I feel like I can speak to some of these a little bit as well. And there's some stats here that really, really stand out to me that I wanted to just share and kind of highlight with you. So number one, 60% of millennials like to communicate via text messaging. I put my hand up and say, yes, that's the case. I know I'm one of those millennials that prefers that. I think people just really appreciate that form of communication. I'm seeing some services actually asking their families, what form of communication do you prefer? I think it's important to highlight as well, if someone does say that they prefer text messaging, I think it's important that you do at least give them that option to communicate in that way. Number two, 40% of millennials prefer self-service over human contact with businesses. That's a really important one. We did just touch on that. So it allows families to be able to go online and book tours themselves. Again, this is a big topic that we will cover today. But I think that's important to note that 40% of those families do actually really prefer that option. And so they're going to be looking for that. So not only do they prefer it, they're going to be going online, looking for that tour calendar, looking to self-serve. They're hoping that that's the option for them rather than having to call or email and doing that back and forth. And lastly, 73% of millennials say that valuing their time is important. I think a lot of us can resonate with that one. I know that's the case for me, and I'm sure Karen as well. We're busy, we're working, we've got a lot on our plates. And so making sure that our parents feel as though we value their time, we respect their time, and ensuring them that we're being quick and efficient with that experience, I think is really key to keep in mind. So not dragging out the process if it can be something that can be quick and back and forth. So I think those are three stats here that really stood out to me in terms of things that we need to be thinking about in terms of our millennial families. So next, let's look at the parent experience and how that affects enrollment and retention. So there's some numbers here on the slide. This is essentially talking about your enrollments, positive enrollment experience, so an optimized parent experience, and then an unoptimized experience. And number one, how that can affect your retention of families and your potential other families, but also how that can, naturally affect your revenue. So every step of that parent journey that we talk about is an opportunity to convert a family. It's an opportunity to have that really positive experience and have a family decide to enroll with you. So essentially that can equate up to $24,000 a year. That's a lot of money, obviously. Now think about it on the flip side. We're imagining a scenario where we don't have an optimized parent experience. So maybe some families are slipping through the cracks. If we use Karen's example, she highlighted actually quite a few opportunities there where no follow-up, she showed up at the service, they weren't offering a tour, maybe they weren't offering an online enrollment self-service option. So if you think about 10 families that were interested in your service that wanted to go ahead, but for whatever reason you didn't offer the optimized enrollment, that parent journey, and they didn't end up enrolling with you, that's the equivalent of $240,000 a year that's potentially missed in revenue. So that's a significant chunk. Now, if we go back to that really positive experience, there's also a really additional great benefit of how that can impact your families. And the reason for that is if you offer a really brilliant, lovely customer experience, people are going to talk about it. They're also going to talk about that negative experience, which Karen has shared, and she might have shared with other parents as well who have children similar age. But when you do have a really positive parent experience, number one, word of mouth really counts, and parents are going to find out about that. But number two, that's really going to help with your retention of your families as well. So it's just important to think about how this optimized enrollment can, number one, of course, impact your revenue, but also can impact your retention and your word of mouth of your families. Okay, so like we said in the agenda, we're going to walk through a parent enrollment journey. Now, I'm actually going to share a story, actually kind of similar to what Karen shared in terms of a parent that I recently spoke to, who shared when she had actually inquired at two different services. So she inquired at two services and actually booked tours at two different services. And spoiler alert, she ended up enrolling at one of the services. But what essentially ended up happening is that she inquired at one service and then booked a tour online herself. So she was able to do that herself. Before the tour, actually, she did receive a tour reminder text message, which she said she really appreciated and made sure that she was on time and attended the tour. So that was really great. following the tour, which she actually really liked the tour at both services. She said that she felt that both services had everything she wanted. She was really happy with both experiences. Now, what really stood out to her at the one service was that, in fact, they did a very thorough follow-up. She felt as though all her questions were answered. She really knew where she stood, and they really laid out the next steps of that customer experience, be it joining the waitlist and what that entails, orientation sessions, or potentially enrollment. So at that stage, she was really happy with that service, so she decided to enroll, and that's where the online enrollment option was offered to her, and Karen touched on that too, and she really enjoyed that. She said she was a little bit nervous about what that whole enrollment experience was going to look like, being a first-time parent, and also hearing, some stories about that being a fairly painful process. But she said the online enrollment option was brilliant. She said it was actually a lot easier than she expected, and in the end, she was able to enroll her child fairly easily. On the flip side of that, that parent actually is a member of a local mom group in town. And so, probably similar to Karen, there was some parents who asked her about her experience and what that looked like, and, asked to get a little bit of feedback. And so she was able to share that she actually had a really great experience at that service. They made it really easy, convenient for her. She felt like they really valued her time and really respected kind of that whole process. So she shared that positive experience with those other parents. And as a result, some of them have actually inquired, and one has actually since enrolled their child at that service as well. Now, I did ask about that other service that she toured at, and she said she actually still hasn't even heard back from it, that service. So she's still waiting for that phone call or that email or that follow-up, and she says, who knows where I am, if I even exist to them. But she shared that, that one service really stood out to her for a positive experience, and so that's obviously why she chose to enroll with them.
Great. So what we'll go on to now is the 7 steps to improve your parent experience. So step 1, design a digital marketing plan to generate inquiries. When I speak to centre directors or owners, I always say, if you're not on Facebook, you really need to be getting on Facebook. Facebook has over 1 billion daily users. And I'm not sure about yourselves, but I find I'm constantly having sort of a flick through Facebook, see what my friends are doing, what's happening in the news, and of course being marketed to at the same time. You probably may see that you're getting a lot of your inquiries coming through your website, but I guess the way that I kind of view it is that if I'm looking for childcare, or even if I'm looking for, say, a restaurant, I'll go to their webpage and have a look first and make sure it meets my requirements. What time are you open? What inclusions, or for a restaurant, what does your menu look like? And I get the basic information. But then from there, I jump on Facebook, because Facebook is so much more interactive. Your webpage, you're probably not updating as much, where Facebook, if you're very engaged, you are updating on a very regular basis, or the centres that are doing it quite regularly. Australia Day celebrations. What did your centre do? Tennis lessons. This is a program that we're now offering our children. Celebrating staff anniversaries. That I look at that and I go, wow, that's great, because this educator has been there for a really long time. They must be really happy. Happy educators stay at centres, and then in turn have happy children. So really tap into Facebook and ensure that you are online, that you're updating. Same with Instagram. Instagram is becoming more popular as well. So put all of these things out there and give families the real experience of what their child's going to be experiencing day to day in your centre. With Facebook, there is Facebook ads that you can go and put up there. I'm not sure whether or not that you've seen them yourself, where I get notifications of childcares within my area. You can really make the most of your marketing budget using the Facebook ads, that they will place ads in, say on your Instagram. If someone's inquired about childcare, your centre will come up within their feed. The other one we'll talk about is lead generation, like Toddle and Care for Kids. Again, when I speak to centres, some people say, I'm just not getting the results that I wanted from there. But again, it's a bit like having a look at it, that I know when I was looking for care, I went straight to Google and I went straight to Care for Kids, because Care for Kids would give me so much information. It would tell me who has places available, what the fees are, how many centres are within the area. So really be sort of tapping into that. The next step we'll talk about is web forms and landing pages. So 70% of childcare business owners are making the use of these inquiry pages. And as I mentioned before, when I started looking for care, it's after hours, it's when you're already closed and I want to send through that inquiry. So have these landing pages and web forms very accessible for families to go and send through their details. That way you can capture their information, you can give them a call back. And for me, I'm like, it's bonus points if you send an immediate confirmation that you've sent that inquiry, because, you know, families are calling maybe numerous centres. So when they get that call back and they've got that confirmation, they've got your details, they know that they've been heard. So definitely one that you should be having if you don't already. I'll take you on to sort of the next step that with building web forms. So what I like to see when I have a look at childcare centres is a web form on the front page that tells me exactly what I need to do. When I've hit on a web page, I'm looking at it because I'm looking for care for my child. And I know what I want to do is send through an inquiry, if not book a tour on that web page. So make it very easy on the front page that they can see the inquiry here. They can see the contact us, book a tour. I'd also put it on every single page as well that they are going to land on. So whether or not a family has a look at your inclusions and it ticks all the box and that's what makes them send through the inquiry, or they have a look at staffing and see that you've got staff that are staying with your centre for a long time, and that's something that's important to them, and that's when they're making that decision. So have as many web forms as you can. That way parents can send their information at that moment that they decide that they want to continue on. Other recommendations when you're creating the web forms is keeping it really simple. We recommend seven form fields: parent's name, phone number, email, child's name, date of birth, and when they want to start. That gives you all of the information that you need. What we found is that 120% increase in conversion rates with the lower amount. So that's going from 11 to 4, and that's a huge percentage. So keep them simple. Again, I know when I have a look at websites that I've seen one that has the entire enrolment page asking for CRN numbers, asking for what language do we, additional languages do we speak at home, that we don't really need to know that in the initial stage. The shorter that you make it, the quicker that they will be wanting to send their details through. A few other tips as well is, in terms of branding, keep it with the colours that you've got, keep it simple. Don't use fancy fonts, make it very clear that the call to action is to send your details through for us to give you a call back and to book that tour in.
Those are really good points that Karen's highlighted, and something that I actually like to do as a bit of an exercise with some of my customers is I will actually go on their website and try to inquire myself for the first time, having been on their website. And if it is a little bit challenging for myself, then I think, okay, what is a potential other family or our customer, what's that experience going to look like for them? So just keep that in mind. It's maybe a good little exercise to do yourselves as well. Get, a partner or a friend to go to your service website and say, where would you go to book a tour? Where would you click to inquire? And if they're not able to do it quickly and efficiently, or if they're finding it's difficult to do on their mobile device, I think that's important to note as well. Then maybe you need to just have a little bit of think about what you're going to be doing. So next, yes, we're going to talk about optimizing landing pages. So landing pages, like Karen said, can be really, really powerful. You can use these for specific kind of pages, for specific topics, for specific categories. So as an example, if you wanted to create a kindy page specific about information about the kindy program, I think key things to keep in mind are use, nice colors, nice images. I always suggest, this is a great example we have on the slide here, but use images that clearly, as a viewer, exactly this is specific to kindy. The children are kindy age specific. So make that really clear. Keep it simple as well, like Karen said, and keep it specific. Don't get don't get too much detail on there so that parents are having to go through a ton of detail to understand what kind of the topic is there. So keep that simple, keep that really clear as well. Keep it brief as well. I think that's important to highlight, just so parents really understand kind of the intention behind what they're supposed to be doing. And then also use keywords. So as an example, if we're talking about kindy, you're going to want to see words like school readiness or big school. So using keywords that your customers, your parents, and your viewers are going to recognize right away to say, yes, you know what, I'm on the right landing page. This is where I'm supposed to be. Okay, next, this is all about scheduling a tour online. I really love this as a step to improve your parent experience. I'm really passionate about this one. At the service I used to work at, we introduced this and we saw really positive numbers and results in terms of allowing our families to book tours online. I kind of think of it like if you were to book a restaurant or a doctor's appointment. I mean, when you think about that experience for yourself, you're going to the website, you're looking for the date and the time that suits you, and then it's, you know, it's done. It's quite convenient. You're often going to get a reminder the day before or a confirmation. And so we want to be offering that experience for our parents as well. We want to really be giving them that self-serve, that really easy, convenient option. It also saves your staff time, which is a bonus. I know a lot of us are struggling with staff at the moment as well. So we can just eliminate a little bit of extra pressure for staff having to go back and forth with emails and finding a suitable time for the center and the family. I think that's also a benefit. And also your parents are really looking for this nowadays. You know, I highlighted that before. 40% of our millennial parents are looking for this. So I think it's important that we do at least offer this as an option for your families. They'll be excited to see this. But also I like the idea of it being really accessible to more families as well. So a lot of us are working busy, you know, working 9 to 5, working office hours. And so we don't necessarily have the time to send an email. Like Karen, you know, highlighted, she's doing a lot of this after hours, right? She's not doing it during her workday. So you're not always able to call the service to book a tour or email the service during business hours to book a tour. So allowing families to be able to do this outside of hours is really beneficial. But you can also even imagine a scenario of a new mom, a new parent nursing her little one late at night and thinking, oh gosh, you know, I need to start thinking about childcare. And so it's 2 a.m., you know, she wouldn't be able to call the service at that hour, would she? So she's able to go online, do a little bit of research and book a tour. So this is why I think this one's really powerful and something that if you haven't considered, that you do consider in terms of a really good option for your parents.
Great. So we'll now look at step 4, which is marketing automation. So for those who may not be familiar with marketing automation, the way that I describe it is basically automating a response based on an action. So what we've seen is that when an inquiry comes through, if you contact that lead within 5 minutes, it's 21 times more effective. I see this with my role every single day, that when I get an inquiry that comes through, if I'm not actioning it straight away, the director has gone into the room, they've been pulled away somewhere else. So think of that as the same, is that parents are busy, that if you get me when I'm calling, the moment that I send through that inquiry, that's what I'm focused on. If you get me half an hour later, I might be in the car driving, can't pick up the call. I might be back at the office. I can't take the call. So really that speed is really important with getting back to families, but also automating it so they know that what that next step is. So has that inquiry gone through? Has it not gone through? Okay, you've got that response back. Yes, it's gone through. Someone is giving me a call. So again, it just helps families walk through that process. And the big one as well is that in terms of getting back to families as quick as possible, you've got an 80% higher chance of gaining that enrollment. And that's huge. It's probably our biggest indicator that we see is the first centre that a family tours at, that they go and join that centre. I guess in my situation that I sort of shared of the centre that reached out to me, they asked me, what time did you want to come in? Of course, I pick my most convenient time. I'm trying to work around, you know, two children that need sleeps and feeding and all that. So that is my prime time of going in. Anything else that you're fitting around there, maybe not be as convenient. If you've seen the centre and you love it, you've already said, look, I'm moving forward. In my case, I didn't have a lot of time on my hands. So, again, families moving quickly, saying that, I've seen this centre first, we're happy, let's go. So really focus on, really have a big focus on that as soon as an inquiry comes in, to go and have marketing respond to it so that they know what the next steps are, but get on that call as quick as you can to get them in. And have a look at that. I'm sure as soon as that you even start asking families, how many of you toured it when they come in, and have a look at the results yourself and see how is that impacting your centre. That was I the first one versus am I the third one? Are they visiting me 2 weeks later because they drove by and they had a bit of time and they're not quite ready to make a decision? So I love the automation. I love really focusing on that speed if you're looking at increasing your enrolments there. The other, in terms of improving parent experience, is building meaningful relationships. And when we say that, it's really about making families feel like it's a personal experience that they're having, that you're not just another number. So I know that things are automated. I appreciate it. I appreciate the inquiry messages, the reminders, jogging my memory that I have this appointment booked. But when you send these through, make sure that they are personal, where you've got the ability to personalize it. Dear parent's first name. If I go in and see a director or say a 2IC to do a tour, I'd like to see the email come back from that person. I may have built that relationship with Kate, but why is Jenny sending me the email? So personalization, it does come across really well with families. Also, when you are sending your marketing material and group communications, be mindful of who you're sending it to. If you're already using Childcare CRM, you'll be able to see that there are quite a few filters to make sure you are getting the right demographic. But a good example of this is that if a baby is 6 weeks old and they're wanting to start their child at your centre, the parent is not interested in your new tennis program that you're offering. Their child can't play tennis. So make sure that you are quite sort of make sure it's appropriate for that family. If you're sending through tips on toilet training, highly unlikely that someone in their last year of childcare is going to need that. So make sure you are sending things through that that are going to be important to that family. Milestones that families should be that their child should be reaching. They're ones that people they can be quite generic, but going, oh, okay, my child is this age. So really work on making it personal when you're sending through these communications to families. And then I guess, we keep sort of touching on this like right through. And again, it's such an important point, is keeping families engaged and moving forward through their journey. Families, as we mentioned before, they can start looking for care from the moment that they're pregnant. There's things that, they've done a tour, what's our next step? So make sure that you are keeping that engagement with families. Now, if a family has requested to go on your wait list, let them know you'll be receiving a confirmation and we will be checking in with you. If your situation changes, feel free to contact us. Families don't want to be I'm on a wait list, but I haven't heard anything from them. In my case, once I toured, the fact that I had that email there saying this is what the next step was fantastic. That I could action that straight away. I wasn't finding a time for me to give them a call back, answering calls at inconvenient times. I had that next step as to what I needed to do to move forward with that enrolment. And when we talk about sort of millennials, that 80% of families are millennials, and we like doing everything online. If we can do it online, if we can do it often with minimal sort of contact or communications, it often works better for us. That people are just busy. They can't always take calls. So make sure that you're letting them know right the way through what that next step is going to be, whether it's verbally, but Also using a mix of text and email to let families know. I know that the response to text message is so much quicker than any other medium. 90 seconds is the average it takes someone to reply to a text message. If you're like me, I answer voicemail, like I'm listening to voicemails from a week ago. So really sort of focus on these areas to make sure that you are keeping these families engaged and moving right the way through that journey through to enrolment. And so the last one here, step 6 here, is keep touching base with your waitlisted families. So as I mentioned before, keep in touch with these families, let them, find out whether or not they're still interested in your centre, that a mother could have inquired when she's pregnant, what stage is she at now? Is she going back to work? Has she moved out of the area? So have these touch bases, like these touch points, so that families, so that that this is an active wait list, not 100 names when 50 people don't need care anymore. When you're touching base with families, see if their situation has changed. Do they want to start earlier? Do they want to start later? I think, for first-time parents, it's really hard to know, when am I going to be ready to go back to work? So these things do easily change. The same with COVID, it's brought up a lot of new situations for families of, people losing employment, people working from home, all these type of things. So do these checkpoints with families to see if anything has changed. And then most of all, get them excited about your centre. Let them see what the children are experiencing day by day, and they can imagine themselves in that position. So I know that, say water play, my daughter loves it. So, getting that kind of information through to me, I would be like, oh, wow, that's one of her favourite activities that she likes to go and do. Mother's Day morning teas. Everyone, all parents would love to, that I guess, memory of the morning tea that they're having. So the more information that you're sending through really gives families an idea and really keeps you forefront in their minds as well, that, I've continued to hear from this centre, this is the one that we're wanting to go with.
Awesome. I think what's also really important to remember in step 5 and 6 that Karen just highlighted is, all of us work in the industry or either have children who have gone through the childcare experience, but we have to keep in mind that a lot of these families don't know what this optimal parent experience even looks like. So it seems sometimes really obvious to say, follow up after the tour and make sure you're staying engaged with your waitlist families. But a lot of these parents don't know exactly what to expect, what the next steps are. You would be amazed how many times I hear after a family tours, they go, what happens next? What do I do? So this is why we're talking about really making it clear and obvious to your families in terms of what the expectations are in terms of the following next steps. Don't make them guess, don't make them chase you up, chase them up, do your homework, follow them up. And also I think Karen highlighted a really good point. We've chatted about it this whole time as millennials, but also keep in mind what that experience is going to look like on your phone as well. I think that's important to keep in mind. A lot of us are working, so we do have computers or we have our own personal computers, but also a lot of people, including myself, are going to be doing a lot of this online. So not only is all of this important, but make sure that you're optimizing this experience also in a mobile version, I think is important to keep in mind as well. And the last step here, so step 7 is offer an online enrollment option. So again, millennials, this is becoming an increasingly more popular option, but we're just hearing that a lot of our families are really looking for this option. Number one, it's more convenient for them, right? So filling out paperwork can be time consuming. That can be a bit of a stressful scenario. So we want to be offering our families a more convenient, faster solution. We talked about how people really want to feel as though their time is being valued. So make sure we're offering them, a time efficient solution. Also worth highlighting here, 42% of millennials don't own a printer. I'm one of those millennials who don't own a printer. So think about that scenario. You're sending your families a PDF version of the enrollment solution. So what are they to do? They have to find a printer, they have to fill it out. And then that's where we get into a little bit of back and forth with the staff. That does take your staff a little bit of time chasing out paperwork. What if the writing is illegible? What if there's pieces missing? So there's a lot of benefits to that online enrollment option. It's just something to really keep in mind. I also want to highlight in these 7 steps that a lot of you may be actually doing almost all of these steps or all of the steps already. So what I think about when I'm thinking, okay, no, I'm check, I'm doing all 7 steps, is think about where maybe you can improve. So maybe you are, sending out emails to your waitlist families. But like Karen said, maybe you're not actually highlighting all the beautiful things that you're doing. Maybe they're fairly generic and you're not, maybe you can make some improvements on making them more enticing and get families excited about enrolling with you. Or maybe, you're not doing the online tour solution, but that's something you can offer, because again, that's really customizable. So even though you may be short-staffed, maybe you can still offer that self-service option, but within the time parameters that work for you. So just what I like to highlight is that you may be doing a lot of these, but just think about where there's gaps or where you could be making improvements in these 7 steps.
Great, thanks for that, Selene. So what's the next steps with childcare success? So tomorrow what's going to happen is that we will send you a certificate of attendance, receive the webinar recording. You'll also get 3 email templates to engage your waitlist. So they're always interesting to read, that if you're not doing it already, to get some ideas there. And you'll also gain early registration for our next webinar. So what I'll do, obviously, if you'd like to organise a demo, reach out to myself, or otherwise go to sales@childcarecrm.com, or go to email or go to our website. So I'll open up to see if anyone has any questions there.
I got a question, Karen, from the private Q&A from Isabel. I love using Childcare CRM. My directors really like how the system automatically texts and emails parents. How do I get started with the digital tour scheduler?
I can answer that one. So the digital tour schedule is our parent self-scheduled tour calendar that we offer online. So if you wanted that option, you would just reach out to your customer success advocate, which is likely me if you're from Australia, and I can walk you through essentially how to set that up. The benefit of that feature is it's really actually quite efficient and quick and easy to set up. And then while I do the setup with you on the call, we'll do probably a Zoom call to set that up. I will coach you and teach you on how to manage it yourself. And then after that, you should be able to self-manage that feature.
Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions? I'll check the Q&A as well.
I just had one more that came up in the private Q&A as well, from Ethan. How customizable are the web forms?
How customizable are the web forms?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Very customizable. So touching on what Karen said, you do have the options to kind of add, essentially as many fields as you want. Now, keep in mind, those fields do have to map into Childcare CRM. So if it's not a field that we have in Childcare CRM, that wouldn't be possible. But we do have a lot of options here. And we do, of course, recommend that, you keep these web forms fairly refined. But yes, you can absolutely customize them with colors and logos, and make sure that the form really reflects and embeds well onto your website. So the look and the feel is quite important. We really support in terms of making sure that fits with your website as well.
Excellent. I don't see any other questions. However, if anyone does have any questions, they can always email to sales or customer success, to Selene and Karen, and ask them anything about their current subscription with Childcare CRM, or if they're new to Childcare CRM, they can ask Karen any questions about the product. Lastly, before we go, Karen, did you want to just touch base on the special February offer?
That's right. So till the end of this month, we've got a great offer out where if you schedule a demo and you come on as a new customer to Childcare CRM, that you'll get a free tablet for each of your centres. So this is a pretty great incentive that I know that a lot of centres are using the tablets for when families come in, that they're able to check in that they've attended the tour. If you have a lot of walk-ins, that you can give them the tablet, get them to fill in their details. And also, for your staff, that they can use it to take notes as they take families on the tour, so that they remember everything that's important to that family, and really make notes, so that they have created that personal sort of experience when families get back in contact.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Hopefully, some of us will jump on that. Just that offer. It's really, really good. Cool. If we don't have any more questions or comments, we might just leave it there. And please look out for the email tomorrow with your certificate and the recording, so you can share it with your colleagues, with your team, and anyone else. And yeah, we will.
Thank you, everyone.
And look forward for our next webinar as well in March. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.